Now, countries have begun to ratify the AFCFTA legal instruments with Ghana, Kenya and Rwanda being among the first. Now, while this is a significant step, the AU awaits 19 other African ratifications for the agreement to come into force. Now, to find out what the Commission is doing to speed up the process of bringing the agreement into force, we're joined by African Union Commissioner for Trade and Industry, Ambassador Albert Muchanga. Thank you very much for creating time, Ambassador. This is rather very interesting that we get to talk about rather one of the historical signings that happened here in Kigali. We've seen Rwanda, Ghana and Kenya becoming one of the first countries to actually ratify and deliver the legal instruments. What is being done to speed up this process, to see more countries actually delivering on the same?
Thank you very much. Actually, we can also add in Nigeria. Nigeria have communicated to us that the National Parliament has approved the ratification, so we're just waiting for them to depose the instrument. So we are talking of 18 more countries remaining. And we are reaching out to the business sector and also to the governments, sensitizing them that there are a lot of opportunities in the African Continental Free Trade Area. And the earlier we ratify the instrument so that the agreement comes into force, the better for everybody. So right now, we have a tour of selected cities of West Africa. We had Accra today and yesterday. Today, we are going to Abidjan. Thereafter, we shall move to Dakar, Senegal, and Conakry. And this is just the beginning. We're also going to visit other West African cities and all other regions of Africa. And at the national level, the chairperson of the African Union Commission has been visiting various capitals around Africa, sensitizing the heads of state and the government on the need to ratify the instruments for those who have signed and the need to sign for those who are yet to sign. So we are very active in the sensitization process.
So far, what would you say is taking long for these instruments to be delivered, Albert, if you could add on that?
Well, you see, the African Continental Free Trade Area affects many stakeholders. We need to bring on board the labor movement, the civil society, the parliamentarians, the private sector, among others. So at the level of national governments, they have to reach out to all these stakeholders. And in some countries, you find that national parliaments are on recess. So that could be a delay. But normally, in the African Union system, it takes about 5 years for agreements to be ratified, and then the agreement comes into force. But on this one, with a very aggressive sensitization and advocacy program, the target made by the heads of state and the government when they were in Kigali was that we should achieve the minimum ratifications between 9 months and 12 months. The 9th month will end in December, the 12 months will end in July this year. So far, I think we've been talking to a lot of countries. We see quite a number of them coming on board around December. Maybe around December we should have 50% ratification.
Would you say today that the private sector in Africa does understand the benefits of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? And if not, what more needs to be done or put in place at this particular moment for them to understand the benefits?
The most important thing is that the private sector needs to understand the provisions of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. Other than the advocacy and sensitization that we're undertaking, we are also in the process of drafting what we are going to call the business guide to the African Continental Free Trade Area. Our target is to publish this document by December this year, and we shall use it in 2019 and 2020 to sensitize the private sector across Africa on the provisions. So it will be a user-friendly guide, easily understandable by the private sector, and outlining the opportunities that are in the agreement, as well as addressing the concerns of the business sector. So in our sensitization program, we are compiling all the questions that the private sector has. And we've also requested the chambers of commerce and other private sector bodies to come up with the full list of their concerns, and the deadline is September. Out of that, we're going to assess the most critical questions, the one which are being asked most frequently, and those will be part of the business guide. So, but some of the business people are already aware of the opportunities. They are ready. They want to move in as soon as it comes into force. Others will still need really to get used to the provisions and see the opportunities.
Now, Ambassador, since this has a trickle-down effect on almost every sector and everyone in Africa, we've spoken about the government will to actually put this in place and enforce, which you are speeding up, obviously, to see that it comes into effect. We've looked at you, again, going in to sensitize the private sector on the benefits and much more on the same. But the ordinary person, the ordinary African, how do you hope to reach out to them?
Well, what we are doing right now is reaching out to the ordinary people. Those who are watching are able to see what is going on. Other than that, we've also requested the national governments to really reach out to all the people that they are involved in, and especially the parliamentarians. I was with the Pan-African Parliament not too long ago, and I requested the members of parliament to go and reach out to their fellow parliamentarians so that when they go to their constituencies, they bring the message about the African Continental Free Trade Area, what it does for the common man. One of the instruments agreed upon is the protocol on the free movement of people across Africa, the right of establishment, right of residence. And that is going to impact very positively on the ordinary Africans, because they can visit any African country without any major problems. And in anticipation of this, quite a number of countries have also come up with a program where Africans visiting those countries can get visas on arrival. Rwanda is in that category, Kenya is in that category, Nigeria. And not too long ago, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia indicated that Ethiopia is moving in that direction. And we are also encouraging governments to set up national structures where regularly there can be an engagement with the stakeholders on what is going on in the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we are meeting the ministers next week. We'll see if that idea is fully accepted.